Hey everyone, it's Types, and today we're going to be taking a look at something a little bit different than normal. Of course, normally I talk about the Pokemon TCG, which I am doing today, as always. However, normally I talk about Standard. Standard is the format that, people play, right? Essentially, it's the main format people play. If we look at tournaments for the Pokemon TCG, we can see, let me make sure it's just the Pokemon TCG, and I guess it doesn't need to be online. We see that most of these are in the Standard format. We got a few in some, I guess I'll just say other formats. We got 2 in retro formats and 1 in expanded here. And I mean, the biggest tournament here has 20 players. There's some that are very small. There's some standard tournaments that are also small, but look at the biggest tournaments. Almost all of them are standard. I will also mention there is Pokemon TCG Pocket, which is a different game, but in some ways you can view it as a different format. But anyways, that's definitely not for today. However, obviously, we're not talking about standard. We are talking about the other format that sees a good amount of play, specifically internationally, and that is GLC. GLC is a format that I don't really play too much, but my channel actually started as a GLC channel. And the GLC format has 3/4 main rules to it. And today we're going to be taking a look at some deck lists in the perfect order format here. So take a look at a deck list. Well, oh yeah, so forgot about this thing. So as you can see here, the decks are singleton, right? One copy of every card except for basic energy here. And so that is rule 1. Rule 2, as you can see, you can just look at the decks. They are by type here. Your deck has to be monotype. All your Pokemon in your deck have to be one type. Then the third rule is that you cannot, as you can see, there are no EXs here. There are no rule box cards allowed, so no EXs, no A-Specs, which I think technically rule box just applies to Pokemon, so A-Specs are like another rule, but not really. No Prism Stars, no VMAXs, nothing like that. Additionally, we see plenty of cards here that are not in standard, like this Octillery here. So instead of being temporal forces on, or the standard format here, it is, let's see, what is there a card from Black and White base? I actually don't know the sets of a lot of these older cards very well, I'm not gonna lie. But if we got a card like, I don't know, just like imagine I found a Black and White Eric. I actually don't see any Black and White Eric cards immediately, though. It could just be missing one here. Or like Bicycle is a Black and White era card here, so it's Black and White on. This is the same time period as the expanded format. The reason for this was because of essentially Pokemon TCG Online, which doesn't exist anymore. So a big reason why this format is less popular than it could be, because it is a cool format to play, is because you can't play it online on live, right? You could play it on simulators like PTG Sim or whatever, or you could play it physically or using streaming a tabletops system or whatever. But ultimately, it is a cool format, and those are the rules, right? And you can see that there are some really interesting things here. Specifically, the singleton nature of the format really changes things. So I guess I'll give a quick rundown if you're not familiar of, I guess, the basic concept of singleton is kind of what I'll describe it here as. Of course, in a Pokemon TCG deck, you want a certain amount of, for example, I've made a lot of videos on supporters recently, so you want a certain amount of supporters in your deck. Usually that's going to be like maybe 4 Lows Determination, or I'll just say 4 Lows Determination for Iono. Of course, Iono rotated. I recently made a video, and so you should check that out. Actually, it's a really interesting discussion there, and I probably will make videos on supporters in the future as well, because they are a really interesting thing post-rotation, and so subscribe so you don't miss that. But, I will also say, if you want to see more content talking about GLC, leave it in the comment section. Especially, I'd love to see if people, I know there are generally, I think GLC fans are like really GLC fans, and there are other people who just like don't know much of anything about it. But I'd love to hear about your experiences with the format. But you see that there are supporters, and you have like maybe a similar amount of supporters, except obviously each one is different, so they all have different pros and cons. So Low's Determination is still here, but then you see, I guess the other draw supporter is Colossus Experiment. This deck's actually a little, I don't know if weird, but has some Lost Zone stuff in it. I'm going to enable Kramer, which will actually, I'm going to actually dive into the decks here to take a look at how it's changed since, I guess, last time we've taken a look, which has been a while by now. I'm sure you can check out my channel to see when that was, or maybe not. Maybe it'll be really hard to find as well. But we see Colossus Experiment as a draw supporter. You got like Peony as a setup supporter, Ball Guy as a setup supporter, which, by the way, Ball Guy is super funny card. It searches for 3 different item cards with the word ball in the name, villain put into your hand. Of course, in standard, we have, I'll just talk about pre-rotation. You got Nest Ball and Ultra Ball there, and those are both good cards. And generally, so the term Ball Search is used sometimes, and it's generally meaning items that search for Pokemon, and the term is generally used because a lot of the best ones throughout the course of the Pokemon TCG have been balls, as in literally having the word ball in their name. You can see Dive Ball, Hisuian Heavy Ball, Nest Ball, Level Ball. Team Aqua's Great Ball, I guess. That's not like an iconic ball search card. That's an interesting one, but I'm not diving super deeply into everything. But we got like Ultra Ball, and there'd also be like something like Quick Ball. There's a bunch of them that exist. Dive Ball's like a type specific one there as well. But with these Guards Ball, guy gets you a bunch of different Pokemon and is really powerful. I will say my critique of the card in terms of not in like card design. I think it's a cool design card, but it is in some ways the face of GLC. However, I personally don't love to play the card because it's a card that then thins your deck out of like the Pokemon Search, which Pokemon Search is generally good to have, especially when you have. I mean, you play the most powerful Pokemon Search cards, but obviously if you have, say, like Dive Ball, right, that's going to be the most powerful Pokemon Search card in the deck. You're not running 4 Dive Balls, right? You can't do that. You're running 1, so you're running. Oh, Quick Ball is here. I just missed it. I said it because it's good, but I didn't actually see it. But anyways, you're running stuff like Quick Ball, Level Ball, Ultra Ball, which have downsides here. That being said, these cards are pretty good, but you do have a limited amount of these powerful cards, and you're forced to play some potentially weaker cards as well. Like for example, Team Monko's Great Ball is kind of weird. That's a fun card. We can like use Ball Guy to find an energy, but ultimately there are cards that are going to be stronger or weaker than others just in general. But then the deck also has some really interesting things here with the way it's built. So generally when I think of water, I think of I think of either spread or big energy. I generally think of big energy. This is, I guess, more like the spread cheap attackers, but these are just efficient 1 energy attackers. Not all 1 energy here. You do see Palafin, which is that in standard? Yeah, that's in standard. It's a 1 energy attacker. Obviously, being a single price format, we see that the damage numbers you need to be doing are less. That being said, 130 like isn't one-shotting everything. It is like decent though. And Misty Storm. Misty Storm is a card I haven't played in standard, believe it or not. Wait, no, this is a card I played. I think I played it. No, I think I played it in like a trainer trial or something. But it does 140 if you evolved, which is pretty good, right? That's pretty good. There are ways to evolve. All right, there's like Scoop Up Nat in this list. I think that's the only one. You could be knocked out and recover as well. Recover the Pokemon to reuse it. And then also you oh no, you don't paralyze. I don't know why I think you paralyze, but I always think that, but that's not what happens. But you do a bunch of damage. 140 for 1 there. A little more than Palafin. So definitely some really interesting Pokemon. Palafin also damages itself if you attack. Well, it like doubles the damage on itself. So if it's damaged, it damages itself, which is interesting there. Then you also have I guess I will say this. I think people know this, but it also matters for GLC here that Starmie and Misty Starmie are different Pokemon, so you can play them because they have different names, and of course Staryu doesn't evolve into Misty Starmie or vice versa, so that's meaningful there. But then we see the other 2 attackers. Empoleon's a really cool card as well. I'm spending a bunch of time on this list because there's some really cool cards in this deck, and Empoleon is a really, really fun one. There's a Beedrill and a handful of other cards like this that I just really love these cards because they're hand-sized stuff, they're moderate payoff, right? This does 60 for 1 water, which can be used to snipe stuff, which can be good and can also, it can just do like decent damage for 1 energy, I guess. And on top of that, it also has 160 HP because it's almost like a basic, right? We don't see the previous evolutions here because you cheat into play with its ability. So the ability here says if you have no Pokemon, sorry, if this is in your discard and you have no cards in your hand, then you can put it into play and draw 3. So you can just cheat it out that way. It's a really fun card, but it is a difficult challenge to do. You shrink your hand, but you want to shrink it for that. You also want to shrink it for Octillery. We see Octillery and Inteleon. One interesting thing about these decks is that you have these obviously thin lines of, I mean, everything's one line or however, many pieces are in the line, but you have these generally different engines, and you have some engines that are like super core. So you got Octillery, which is draw till 5, which is your main repeatable draw engine, and then you have Inteleon, which is kind of like Knocked Owl there. So That's pretty interesting. Also, I will mention, I guess, the Starmie as well. I'm going over all the Pokemon here, but Starmie is a funny card that I actually played. I was playing in a format that was, I'd say, both pre-rotation and post-rotation. So I play this with Mega Starmie EX, which obviously you can't actually do in Standard, and that was funny. It was not very good, but it was funny there. And then we have Kermit. Kermit's the most interesting card in this deck. Definitely a really interesting card. And I guess I'll mention this now. I heard a little bit of talk about this, and maybe I'll make a full video on this. But this is a Lost Zone card. The Lost Zone, if you're not familiar, is kind of like the discard, but you can't really get cards back. You can't get cards back at all. I don't think you can kind of interact with them though. In this card does. Right, you need 4 cards in the Lost Zone, and there's like some cards that put cards into the Lost Zone specifically. So then this attacks are free, so this isn't a 1 energy attacker. It's free if you're using the ability, and it does 110 there, which is like pretty decent as well. Or actually, very good. It's quite good. I will also mention Teleon as a 2 energy attacker there, but in some ways those make up for each other. And you have Aqua Patch as well. But you see that Cramorant, you need to get cards in the Lost Zone. So you see Lost Vacuum, Lost Blender, Lost City as well. Lost City, I think, a really cool card in GLC for allowing. Obviously, it feeds the Cramorant there. And Colossus Experiment. Forgot that one as well. But anyways, with these cards, you are able to feed the Lost Zone. But with Lost City, it also removes threats permanently, right? Lost Zone, you can't really get those cards back. Generally, you can get Pokemon energies back pretty easily from this card pile. Or Pokemon and basic energies. So Lost Vacuum is definitely Lost City is definitely really interesting there. Ultimately, though, this is cool. Definitely, I think last time I made this video, the decks weren't super interesting. I'm gonna look at, I guess, all the decks that went over even. So this list is, I'd say, a more normal water list. We see the Frostmoth line, as well as, I guess, Aqua Patch and Raihan. So it's mostly Frostmoth. And then you want to get a bunch of water energies on your board onto Wailord. Wailord's just like super big, right? It's 240 HP, does like a ton of damage. And we see Articuno, which could take extra prizes. We see Wishy-Washy, a pretty decent basic, and then some other setup stuff. But mostly you're going to be looking for this Frostmoth line, setting up your board, and get a bunch of water energy on your board. If you're familiar with like Chip Up Excalibur, it's pretty similar to that deck. And if you're familiar with, really any deck that's just flooding your board with energies through the use of one Pokemon, not like Hemasoga Pontiacs with Meganium or something, where you're using like a bunch of Hemasoga Pontiacs to flood your board with energy. This is, having one focal piece as a support Pokemon, and then maybe some different attacking options here. But this deck, I'd say, is a lot tamer, but still kind of cool to know about. Then we got Metal here up next. I might take a look at a list from each type. We'll see. I don't know how well these are going to do. But then we got ourselves Metal here. Metal is interesting. Okay, so we got Bronzong and Matang. These both accelerate energies. They do it in slightly different ways. Again, you will see some redundancy, but redundancy not with literally the same card, but with similar cards fulfilling the same role. We also see like Reverum as the Dronjin. Reverum, not in Standard, but was in Standard quite recently, and a really interesting, card there, having to discard energies from your hand. We actually see how many energies? We see 10 basics. So obviously you need basics for, with Reverum you don't need a basic. We see 11 energies. You need a basic from a Tang or Bronzong there. So we see ways to recover energy as well. Obviously, you're going to see recovery in every deck, but we see, I guess, Mount Cornet's a little more than you might see in some other decks. But we see generally these metal Pokemon, or I guess these metal support Pokemon that are accelerating energy. This is kind of like the water deck, but this is, I guess, more like the Teal Mist Pony X thing you're doing. Obviously, we got like Flaffy in Standard. You have you had Zadu in Standard. You got Barbarical and Toxtricity. There we go. Those are the other ones, which we might actually see in this video. We'll see. But you have this idea of just these stage ones that are getting you some energies. You want to get those, and you want to get your basic that's doing a big damage, which is what we see here. We see Cobalion. Cobalion, I guess, is a little more situational. Then you got Dialga here and Iron Crown. One interesting thing is, as well, we see stuff like Iron Crown and Dialga. These cards are actually both in Standard, but they're like not good at all in Standard. Oh, okay. Apparently Dialga's been played in Standard. I have not played it. Apparently Iron Crown a tiny bit, but not really. Has anyone... Wait, I've seen this Dialga played. I was going to say, has anyone seen this Dialga played? I have actually seen this Dialga played in Stevens. I played against it, and it's like, okay, I guess. But it's certainly a lot better in GLC. Doing 160 is okay in Standard, when you're powering it up really easily. But in GLC here, it is like knocking out pretty much anything there. Or at least many things. You might see some really tanky stuff like Wailord, which you saw earlier. But Generally, nothing super crazy with this deck. This is, kind of, I'd say, the normal GLC stuff. Get some big Pokemon. Here we see another metal list. This is interesting. We actually see Klefki with Memory Lock. This, I believe, was in the pre-release kit for Perfect Order, I believe. So that's kind of interesting. Also, a new card. This is one of the first new cards we've seen. Oh, I guess the other card that that's a new card that we've seen is Pokebad. I didn't talk about Pokebad. I kind of forgot about it. It's very good. I mentioned Dive Ball for Water, which I guess Dive Ball for Water is technically better than Pokebad because you can search it off of Ball Guy, but essentially it's super good, right? I mean, it gets any Pokemon in your deck. It's just the best Pokemon search, but I think Klefki is really interesting here as like a slow down disruptive Pokemon. Really interesting there. We got yeah, okay, so this is a legitimately a control deck, I guess. Yeah, we got like retreat stuff you can do with our Caledon. You can take yourself a retreat, which is actually interesting with Jirachi, which puts itself to sleep and then you can't retreat unless you have a skateboard, which then you'd have free retreat. So then our Caledon doesn't do anything there. But we also see Cobalion here. Wait a second, is Cobalion? Okay, I'd love to hear people's thoughts. Or like, I love insight into this deck in the comment section. Is Cobalion here for the first attack to wall basics like every other turn? That's really interesting. Obviously, Revenge Blast can be really powerful. Can do up to 180 for 2 there, which is quite good. And like Dialga, it can do Metal Blast, which is quite big. But then you can like recover stuff. I played this card in Standard. This card was kind of cool. Oh, I said Dialga deck. Yeah, like Dialga Restart. It's not Dialga with this Dialga. Anyways, so we see like mill stuff and definitely some interesting stuff. I think control is definitely interesting. Control mill as the win condition there. And then we see this last list. This one is kind of like the first one. You got big metal basics. You got like Zamazentai and Crown Dialga, Cobalion. And you see this Arcalon as well, which is a Muta Basics next one. I actually like forgot about this card. I remember I talked about it when the set was announced, or when like the set was revealed or whatever. These cards from Phantasmal Flames, this one as well as actually the Ceruledge, and I thought it was like, oh, those could kind of go into those decks post rotation. And realistically, they're just not super good. The decks are. I think Ceruledge is good, but then ultimately the cards, these support Pokemon are very mediocre, and the decks are kind of mediocre as well. But in GLC, you can do some fun stuff. You can wall some stuff. As I was saying, with a lot of these decks, you do see a bunch of decks focused around basic attackers. So the Arcalodon could just be huge there. Then we got the next type here, which is fighting. And fighting here has some really powerful cards. So first of all, we got this list here. We do see the new Barbarical, which is, as I said, quite good there. We see Hariyama. We see a lot of new cards, right? Fighting in Standard is not the best type, but arguably the best type in terms of like... Actually, no, I don't think it's I don't know. I made a video with Uncommon Fossil where we ranked the types, which you could check out if you haven't seen that, but... We said I don't remember where we put fighting, but that was a lot having to do with like the Pokemon, like the multi-prizers. Fighting has not really any good multi-prize. I guess Mega Lucario is like fine. The deck is pretty good. This isn't a Mega Lucario video, but obviously Mega Lucario is mostly carried by stuff like Lunatone and Fighting Gong and Premium Power Pro, which we see, which are very powerful cards. And then I guess of course Semester Ponyx is also a very good card, but in Standard it's actually not super good. But anyways, we see Hariyama, we see Barbarical, we see Okidogi. Terrakion's also in Standard from White Flare. Not a card I've really seen play. It's a callback to an older Terrakion, which was stronger at the time and is actually in GLC, but relatively stronger compared to the time. But obviously power levels have gone up. So I didn't mention this. So you'll see a lot of kind of random basics from Standard because Pokemon have gotten stronger. Some of it is due to power creep in terms of like HP levels and stuff rising, but part of it's just due to the fact that honestly the sets have gotten better. Recently I made a video kind of talking about, actually related to the set that maybe bring back the Lost Zone in Abyssai. I think that's a Japanese set. I think it's like black something. I remember, I think both words were one syllable. Is it like Black Eye? That doesn't sound right. Pitch Black. There we go. I think that's the name of the set. But anyways, with that set, potentially bringing back the Lost Zone, I kind of said that sets are getting worse, but realistically, well, they are getting a little smaller than they were recently compared to like the black and white X and Y era. The sets are so much better. Well, we also see Tarragon, another new card, and yeah, just like so many powerful support fighting cards. There's so many. They're super good here. In terms of Pokemon, you kind of know them. There's like Lucario, which is just a generic good Pokemon. Save those Sudowoodo, but definitely kind of cool there. Then we got the next type. This one's similar. We see um every Pokemon is Scarlet and Violet era, except for the Riolu, but that doesn't really count. And then almost all these are standard. Lucario. Oh yeah, I guess this card like definitely isn't standard, because if it was standard, it would be seeing a ton of play. And then Hawlucha is not standard either, but for the most part, these are standard. We see. I mean, this is like Okidogi. This is like the Okidogi deck kind of in standard. It's not literally the same, but it's pretty similar. So really powerful there. Then we have the third list. Fighting is like also apparently doing super well. I guess it's doing as well as grass, but yeah, it's doing very well here. And what list did I look at this list? Yes, when I just opened. Or is that the list I just opened? Or is it just very similar to this other list? They are very similar. They're not literally identical, but they're pretty much identical. Okay, so we're gonna move past that one. Move to this fourth list here, and it's not by the same person either. But we see, some other cool stuff, as well as we see Tyrantrum. This card's sick, I guess. Played at the I said I played in the Perfect Order pre-release. I think I mentioned this in a video. This card not sick in the pre-release. The games were very long, but with and there were a lot of millions, but definitely a funny card. It's like super huge. As I said, most of the Pokemon aren't super big, but you look at like Willow and this Tyrantrum. This Tyrantrum is at 330, potentially even more. And we also, this is actually really interesting. So I said, you can't play two copies of the same card, and obviously you can't. And Tyrantrum evolves from Tyrant. Tyrant evolves from Antique Jaw Fossil. However, we see Antique Jaw Fossil, right, obviously, and then we also see Unidentified Fossil. But Unidentified Fossil doesn't evolve into Tyrant, but it actually does. It doesn't evolve into this Tyrant, but it evolves into a different Tyrant. I actually made a GLC live deck based on essentially this concept. Oh, there are a bunch of Tyranitar's there, but we got this Tyrant here, which evolves from Unidentified Fossil. It's not in the deck, however, it exists in the format. Funnily enough, there's also a restored Tyrant. So I guess in Furious Fists, there's a Stage 1 Tyrantrum, which as far as I'm aware, you can evolve from the Stage 1 Tyrant. But anyways, that's like, fossils are super weird. But anyways, essentially this allows you to rare candy this Unidentified Fossil or Antique Jaw Fossil into Tyrantrum. So it's super cool, super wacky. Also, we see Fossil Researcher. Searches for two in any combination of Amore or Tyrant and put them onto your bench. I forgot this card existed. That's really funny. And then also there's I think it's Pokemon Research Lab or something, which is like super good. It banned, so that card's banned. I'll mention that, I guess, which would allow you to cheat Tyrant. Not this Tyrant, but the other one. But definitely a really interesting deck there with Tyrantum just being super big. Then we got Grass as the next type here. Got a couple of lists here. So this one plays some, I'd say, like disruptive stuff, not a pure control deck, I guess. Torterra is like a big stage 2. You will see some big stage 2s. I mean, you saw Tyrantrum. You're generally seeing these big basics powered up by like a stage 1 or something like that, which we saw in a few different decks. You'll see these stage 1s that are generally pretty efficient, or you'll see these really big middle Pokemon that also require a lot of setup, but are big, with a lot of HP, doing a lot of damage, like Torterra here. Grotto also helps you set up, so it's not like a huge commitment. More so going to be a finisher here. But we see a Vileplume and a Badoo, which is item lock. You see Venomoth, that's also item lock, and we also see Executor, which is supporter lock. You can actually support a lock with Executor and item lock with Vileplume. We see Sawsbuck as well as the draw engine. Sawsbuck's like so bad. It's just draw one every turn. I mean, it's not like the worst card ever, I guess, but it's certainly not a very good draw engine. But we do see it because you got to work with what you got to work with. And we see Roserade as well, a fun little on-play Pokemon. And we see, Force of Vitality as well, obviously a very good card. Because Forest of Giant Plants is banned here. And yeah, honestly, I'm not super familiar with Control in GLC, and exactly how I guess you are taking prizes. I don't see any mill supporters, but then you can remove a lot of options and slow your opponent down, and they just have a sweeping Torterra there. which is definitely pretty interesting. Maybe. I don't know if interesting is quite the right word, but definitely a deck that is cool at least to look at here. Got the next list here. Another grass list, and this one is also pretty similar. Yeah, this is actually a very similar grass list. I'm going to quickly take a look at some of these other lists here, see if they're all similar to it. That one's pretty similar. And this one, yeah, I'll just take a look at, I guess, I'll look at all five. Why not? All by different people as well. Okay, this one's different. This one's Cherub plus Solo Executor. Definitely an interesting combo there. I'm not going to dive into this list here, but definitely a really fun one. Um, if not super amazing, but really, really cool there. But definitely seeing Grass being a control type is cool, I guess, unless you don't like Badoo. I guess I don't really like Badoo. I don't know, but definitely interesting to see. Then we got Control, or we have Colorless, which is also Control with the Lillipup, or I guess it's Lillipup. The stout one line here, we could do some cool things. You can recover, you can like stop your opponent playing certain stuff. You got Persian, aka good 06 machinations, because you choose, which is very good, right? As opposed to your opponent choosing, which is not good. But anyways, we got Persian there. And we see Chinchino, Pidgeotto, and Dunsparce as like, and Fanrotom as like the crazy, super powerful draw support here. The draw support in Colorless is just kind of nutty. And then Bunnelby. This is one of my all-time favorite cards, theoretically, because it allows you to attack twice with its Ancient Traits, Omega Barrage. I kind of bash Ancient Traits because it could just be an ability, essentially. But you are able to mill one or recover one, and you can do this twice. You can mill two, you can recover two, or you can mill one, recover one. So it's a cool card. And you can also double TM and expanded. That actually matters a lot, but this ain't expanded here. This is GLC where you got oh yeah, Colorless is also true singleton. Oh, the other thing I didn't say, I kind of alluded to this earlier. The deck lists don't fit on one page. There's like, I think there's a way to view it on the GLC website, but it also doesn't work very well. So yeah, we got Colorless with like energy removal and mill and stuff. It's like a control mill deck there. Definitely kind of interesting to honestly see so much of this in GLC when every Pokemon can attack, right? I mean, okay, Colorless is like the worst type to say for this, but you think about Standard and you think about Latias, I know that's also not a very good example, but if you get trapped in the active using, like, say, Ethan Sudowoodo, and your opponent's playing, what's a deck that plays Latias that doesn't play Psychic? The first thought was like a deck playing Teal'c or Pontiacs, but a lot of those do play Psychic. And then the second thought was Dragapult, which also plays Psychic. But you know, there are decks like, oh, Raging Bolt, there we go, there's a deck. And so you look at that deck, and then if you trap Latias EX in the active, then at that point you just kind of like lose, right? Because you can't attack with it. When GLC, presumably every Pokemon in your deck you can attack with and do damage with, even if it's not good, but you can do something. But you're going to be able to like, you know, reduce damage. You need to play around a lot of different things. It's a really different play style and it is definitely really unique for compared to standards. Definitely like requires a lot of thought and stuff there. But we see this list here, this is not a control deck. This one is just like a good Pokemon deck. We see Dodrio, which is both a draw engine and this like single prize one energy, obviously stage one attacker here, which is just pretty decent, like some of those other ones we saw earlier. We see obviously some really powerful support Pokemon, as I mentioned earlier. We got some different ones as well. Then you have Snorlax as a big basic. You have Hops Kermit is an efficient one energy Pokemon, and we see Kamala as well. This card's kind of weird. Both actors are now asleep, and then next turn, attacks used by this Pokemon do 100 more to your opponent's active. And I guess you pair that with, because Snorlax also falls asleep, pair that with Therapeutic Energy. Definitely kind of weird. And then Slumbering Forest to increase sleep. So definitely a funny card here. Chaos Tower, which stops sleep. On your Pokemon. And on the other side, it stops Confusion or Poison. Yeah, these cards, like, kind of suck to read. I mean, Limitless doesn't even have the full text, just has half the text there. But yeah, definitely some really fun, wacky stuff. Also, oh no, what's this? What's this? Get that out of here. Okay, then we got the next type, which is Psychic here, with one list that we'll take a look at. This is just, you know, basic Pokemon that are powerful. We got Munkidori, which is a good card. I admit Munkidori is a good card. Again, I mentioned Zadu earlier. There's Gardevoir. Okay, Gardevoir is like draw, but not really energy acceleration. But you got Zadu, Malamar, waking up this like pretty simple, stable energy acceleration package and Curly and Gardevoir for some draw and some pretty good basic Pokemon. And we got Frillish as well, you know. Everyone loves Badoo, so we got that there. Then we have Darkness as the next type. Obviously, things can get a little faster. I guess I'll just look at this list here. Um, Not a winning record. It's even here, but this is another deck. We see Toxtricity, obviously a relatively new card, accelerating energy onto your board, and you got these big basics. You got Guzzlord, which takes or takes an extra prize if it takes a knockout. So that's a card. Some people like it, some people hate it. You know, it's a card there, and just some generally pretty good Pokemon. Darkness has some really powerful individual cards there. And then we got Dragon type here. We'll just take a look at this list here. This one, where do they go? 201 drop. Anyways, so you see that you got some basics, and of course you have a double Dragon Energy, the most broken card, and expanded realistically in GLC. It's very, very good as well, though it obviously is just a one of here, but it is realistically going to be the most powerful card in your deck. Linear attack in really explosive ways. You have actually Dragapult. There is no Dragapult you can play in this deck because Dragapult EX is the EX, and then the single prize Dragapults are not Dragon type. So this is the top of the line, which is still a pretty good card there. You know, some generically pretty decent Pokemon, and we see like Latias here, which is actually a card that I've not seen. There's 20 times the amount of energy attached to one of your opponent's Pokemon to that Pokemon. This is like a fun card. I guess I've seen it a little in GLC, but definitely an interesting card there. We have Eternatus, not what I was expecting, because this card is mostly a counter to EXs, or like kind of a counter to EXs, but here it's with the attack's called World Ender, that's kind of, like, it was kind of hard. But for Fire Darkness, 230, if you discard a Stadium in play, so you wanna / have to do that. And yeah, we also see Dragon Elixir as well, kind of haven't thought about it in a little while. Overall, kind of some cool stuff there. They've got Fire, where we will take a look at this list here. We have my favorite Pokemon, Slugma. We also have, basics. We have this interesting Chandelure, definitely a weird card, a fun card. Then we got some like controlly stuff. Power is not really super controlly, or I guess Stolly there. But then we see some big basics, and you have Welder and Blacksmith, and Raihan as well, to like allow you to get extra energy on your board, and just do the big basic fire stuff, right? Then we got the last type here, Lightning. Lightning is, I guess, my favorite type. It's kind of not super good, but you can do some cool stuff with it. There's some really fun Lightning Pokemon, and yeah, we see that you got a lot of Pokemon that knock themselves out, or I guess multiple at least, and some spread stuff, and just some stuff here. I'm not really going to dive into it too much. This is actually, I think, is it the first spread deck we've taken a look at? I don't know. It's the last deck we're taking a look at, though. Ultimately, I think GLC is kind of cool, especially if you're not familiar with it at all. It's really cool to take a look at a little bit. But I hope you enjoyed, and also huge shout out to my YouTube members for supporting my channel. It really means a lot to me. Also, just everyone who likes and subscribes, as in you, because you should like and subscribe. It really helps support me, and it's completely free here. Again, you could support my channel as a member, which you can get some cool stuff for that as well. But I hope you enjoyed, and as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video.